What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hill Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Jeremiah, and with me this week, as always, is Ashley. Hopefully, you guys are having a wonderful week. We've had some pretty eventful ongoings since we last spoke with you guys. Well, yeah, man. Last week we were talking about the Chinese spy balloon and
Okay.
the one unidentified object.
Right.
There have since been two more shot down, and one of them was in Lake Huron. The other, I believe, was in Canada. Correct?
Yeah.
And Justin Trudeau had some pretty interesting things to say. I was surprised when Biden gave his speech that he really he didn't say that much. And according to the people that were in the classified conference they had, I feel like they probably heard more than we heard.
Sure. I mean, they come out, the American people need to know, like, we need to be told. Told what? That it's independent?
Well, basically, I think a lot of people were jumping to the conclusion that these things were affiliated with the Chinese spy balloon that was shot down because it was in such close the timing, right? You got that thing,
and then still they were debriefed on whatever they knew at the time, and seemed like we needed to know.
But, well, according to what he said, I believe that was yesterday evening. He said these things were most likely corporate owned
or independently
owned
researchers
for research, scientific purposes. And that they were basically benign, is what they called them. But
why is that something the American people need to know?
A thing I thought was interesting is when he was talking about the three objects he shot down. Him and other people who have done this. They start referring to the fact that there have been hundreds of UAP sightings, and they kind of slide them into the same category with those.
Right.
And I find that to be really interesting. And a lot of people have been talking for a long time about the possibility of the government faking an alien invasion.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was a big pile of bullshit until all this is going on, and I'm just kind of like, is that what's happening?
I mean, we could be being, what is it?
Conditioned,
right. Desensitized to the idea.
Definitely.
Of them existing.
It's crazy that I'm seeing this in the news in real life. It's weird. It makes things interesting, and it definitely gives us something to talk about. But yeah, a lot of these people keep referring to the fact that I think Mark Rubio said, why is everybody making a big deal that we've seen a couple of these things? We've been seeing hundreds over the years.
Right.
So yeah, they're quickly putting them in the same category. And I think some of the pilots had said that their sensors and things on the plane were being messed with by these objects, and that there were no signs of a propulsion system, so they were just kind of hovering there. And I know
there was one, I can't remember which one it was, that disappeared, right?
I don't know if it disappeared. I do know there was one that required 2 missiles to be shot at it.
Because they missed one.
They did miss one. I don't know how you miss a stationary object.
Maybe they weren't stationary.
And that's an expensive miss, might I add. Because those missiles, I believe they estimated to cost about close to $500,000. I think $400,000. So that's a $500,000 mistake at an unmanned benign object. Okay. Plus, if these things do belong to extraterrestrials, I mean, somebody put some money in these things. Somebody has some time invested in creating them. It's hurting somebody's pockets somewhere down the line.
If they are something like, corporately owned or researchers,
right?
Why has nobody come forward to?
Well, you got to think. If Bob Lazar was correct, the government started trying to reverse engineer advanced technology back in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here, almost 75 years later.
Well, and that was in the 80s when he came forward. But
Well, you know that stuff has since been in the hands of somebody.
Sure.
I don't know who or where, but
Well, I mean, yeah, Roswell was in what, 40s or 50s, right? Is that right?
it surprises me that our government is shooting them down because I, honest to God, I would think they're the ones that was doing it. But who knows? Like another thing that messes me up is you gotta like somebody seen the Chinese spy balloon. There was
Yeah.
like pictures of it. There haven't been pictures of these other things. Like just basically
quite questionable.
taking their word basically for everything. And now I believe they're saying that they can't even recover them, or they're not. I mean, they're saying they will, but it could take some time, and who knows if they'll ever tell us about it.
A lot of people think it's a distraction, though.
It's always a distraction if it's coming through the media. If it's something they're feeding to us,
Because they're not talking about the thing in Ohio. And,
right?
where
Yeah,
is that
I do
in?
want to talk about that as well. That's Palestine, Ohio. I know I pronounced it Palestine when I heard it, and that's the incorrect pronunciation. It's Palestine.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of how Westerners say it, isn't it?
Right. Very unfortunate series of events that occurred up there. It was a train derailment that was carrying some toxic chemicals, and I know they made a decision to do what I think they called it a controlled burn. There are a lot of people upset about it. A lot of people's homes, you know, they're comparing it to what Chernobyl.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah,
So
we don't need
die?
another Chernobyl. I don't want to say because I don't know for sure.
Right.
But not that I've heard. I haven't heard that. There hasn't been any news reports that I've seen. It's mostly been like residents kind of angered by the whole thing.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. But yeah, before we get started, I want to encourage you guys, if you have any encounters you want to share with us, eventually we'll get to where we read encounters from you guys. Right now, we really don't have any coming in to read. So, but yeah, if you guys have any you can send those to HillShadowsKy at yahoo.com, and we'll share them in an upcoming episode.
If you want.
If you want. And if you're into the unknown, unexplainable, the paranormal, hit the subscribe button. Each week, we go over encounters that people face with the unexplainable. And I got some good ones tonight I wanted to talk about. Crazy encounters that people have had in national parks or, in
Mine
general.
Mine are just in the woods.
In the woods, I mean, chances are it could be part of a national park. I mean, Could be. You never know. But I've got some pretty interesting ones. And I know you have quite a few because normally you have trouble finding things. I know you said you were kind of overwhelmed this week. That's always a good thing. So do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to kick it off?
I can start. I'll start with one, and then you can go.
All right. Well, go ahead. Let's see
Oh my goodness!
See what
I
you
would
got.
just. Okay, I got it. So there's one I found that was on Reddit. I think this was like the first thing that I read.
Yeah, that's where mine are from too, as well.
I guess I can start with this one. It's actually a number of encounters this person has. Hold on, sorry. I'm waiting for this to load up. It's going slow. All right. It's under paranormal and strange encounters in the woods. Sorry, I have to continue. All right. So it says, I have a couple different ones to share here. I used to be homeless. Returning home, I stayed in the graveyard where my grandpa was buried. There was an open... I don't know how to pronounce this. Sepulture? I don't know how to say it. Sepulture? Because I don't know what it means, so I don't know. Anyways, that was once used as a storage place for caskets. The racks were still in there. I used to sleep underneath them. I always felt safe in there, though. There was one time, the last year I ever stayed there, I awoke to strange voices. Wait a minute, did I just lose my place? No, I'm sorry, let me go back. I always felt safe in there, though. There was one time, the last night I ever stayed there, I awoke to strange voices, and the room had filled up with frogs. I'm talking at least 20. I kind of viewed that as time to leave. I wrote about that in more detail with a different account. I'll try and link it. Another time, at another graveyard in which I found myself camping one night, just before I fell asleep, I watched a glowing orb float down from the treetops. A couple years later, I found myself, once again, homeless. This time with my girlfriend. So we got a tent and went out into the woods. We stayed from October through March of last year. Never were bothered by anyone. It was peaceful, albeit very cold. So one night, there was this heavy feeling in the air. Cops showed up at our camp. They were there on a suicide call. It was in the middle of winter, and someone had jumped into the river. It was very sad. That night, I dreamt of this middle-aged guy hanging out with us in our camp. He let me know that he was the guy who had taken his life. Anyway, could have been the power of suggestion, but eventually I read on it in the paper, and certain details matched up to my dream. Not exactly paranormal, but I figured I'd share. The creepiest encounter I ever had in the woods goes way back to when I was in 8th grade. My buddy had property in the country. Somewhere along the way, he got it in his mind that there was something living in the woods, some kind of creature, likely due to some strange bipedal tracks that the neighbors had found. Anyway, being teenagers, of course, we camped out and tried to find evidence of anything that was out there. It always felt like we were being watched and followed. Footsteps, glowing eyes, etc. Creepiest night was when we walked to this large fenced-in electric power line tower. We picked up sticks and started banging on the fence because we found some weird hairs on it. So we figured we'd make a bunch of noise and see if it would attract anything. Nothing came, and as soon as we lost interest and walked back to the house, deciding to just stay in for the night. So we had just made it back to his house when all of a sudden we start hearing this clanging noise. Something was at the tower hitting the fence the same way we had been doing, and it sent chills up our spines. Not necessarily like, the most detailed or, encounter.
That's creepy, though.
I thought it was pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
Anywho. Okay, you can go, unless you want me to keep going.
Well, I just pulled up a little thing I wanted to read. It really had me interested in researching the national parks.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty popular topic.
It is.
But according to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, which is NamUs, it's more than 600,000 persons go missing in the U.S. every year. Between 89 to 92% of those missing people are recovered, either alive or deceased, but how many of those disappear in the wild is unclear. What was interesting is there's only 29 open missing persons cases for all national parks.
29?
Yeah, which is crazy because, they say thousands of people go missing. And obviously you can't research any of this stuff without hearing about Dave Paulides. He's got some really interesting documentaries on missing persons, but I'm just going to get into these encounters because it's just endless the amount of information you can find when you start going down one of these rabbit holes. But yeah, there's very mysterious circumstances, and I kind of wanted to see what kind of things people have been reported seeing in national parks, just, in the past couple of years, and I found these on Reddit. This one is under the subreddit, what's the scariest or strangest thing you've seen in a national park or national forest? And this was posted 1 year ago, and I'm trying to see who the user is. I don't think I see a user. I'll definitely leave the link below in the description. I was traveling solo around the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State and making various stops in the Olympic National Park. I decided to stop in Quinault for the first time and took a random road that dead-ended at a beautiful spot at the edge of the Quinault River. There was an ancient footbridge that led across the river, but it looked like it might collapse if I tried to cross it, so I decided not to. It was off-season, and I was not a tourist, and I was not in a tourist area. I was the only one there. It was so unusually hot outside that I decided I needed to get in the water. I backed my car all the way to the edge of the dead-end road, faced it out in the direction I would need to leave, and started hiking through the thick brush down an embankment to the edge of the water. There was no path. It was a pretty rugged area. It was mid-fall, and I didn't have a suit since I didn't plan on swimming, so I just took my clothes off and got in the water in my bra and underwear. I had a nice swim, but I could not shake the feeling that I was being watched, even though I was in the middle of nowhere. After about 5 minutes, the creepy feeling was enough for me to want to head back, so I started to climb out, turn my back to the other side of the river, and walk toward my clothes and shoes that I had left behind. When I turned around, there was a big, tall man standing in plain view just across from me on the other side of the river, but higher up on his embankment than I was on mine. He was wearing a poncho made of animal pelts, had long hair full of sticks and twigs, and looked like he had been living out in the wild for a very long time. We stood and stared at each other, me in frozen terror, for what felt like forever, when all of a sudden he frantically took off in the direction of the footbridge leading across the water. I grabbed my car key, tried to grab my clothes and shoes, but they got tangled up in some blackberry vines, so I left everything and went running for my life through the thick brush and blackberries, barefoot in my underwear, trying to make it to my car before he made it across the river. There was no doubt in my mind that he was trying to harm me. When I made it out of the blackberries, I could see he was crossing the bridge toward me rapidly. I got to my car and flung my door open just as he arrived. I locked the doors while he pounded on the hood of my car, just screaming and grunting non-verbally. The moment he went for my driver's side door, I hit the gas and took off as fast as I could. I looked back and he was chasing after me. He must have ran after my car for at least a mile until he faded from view. I was bleeding everywhere from running nearly naked through blackberries. I was wet, unclothed, shaking and crying. Had I hesitated for literally 10 seconds longer, I don't think I would have made it out alive. Even typing this story out again all these years later, I'm starting to shake. I felt like I was being hunted. That is the only way I can describe it. I will never ever go back to that area. Since that moment, I always bring a hiking buddy with me when I venture out into the forest. That day is going to haunt me for life. I have had many years of therapy, and that experience is still as vivid as the day it happened.
Oh my. I wonder
That's
what was
creepy.
going to happen.
Sounded to me like Buddy was getting ready to get him a snack.
Eat her or do worse
I mean,
things? Or, well, I don't know if that's worse.
he's wearing a poncho made of animal pelts. I'm sure he's a hunter, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but if it's a dude, she's also in her bra and underwear swimming damn near naked.
Now, where did I say this? I can't think of the name of the place this was at, but I said
Peninsula in Washington
Olympic
State.
Peninsula?
Yeah, Olympic. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, you're right. Olympic National Park. So if you guys are in that area, keep your head on a swivel.
That's really creepy. So this thing got
It was
from the other side of the river.
it was trying to beat her back to her car.
Huh.
That's
Yeah, that would be absolutely terrifying. And then chase
right.
for a mile, and she's clearly going really fast. And to even stay with you for a mile is quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's scary to think there's something that aggressive that you could come into contact with.
Yeah. So what she saw was a man, though, right?
It was a tall man, but it looked like he had
Right.
mud and sticks in his hair.
Like
Very
a caveman.
very wild looking. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine something like that.
Huh.
But yeah, that's one of mine. I'll let you go ahead and get on with yours, and I've got
Wow.
another one that's same, just from somebody, and there's a lot of the comments on these threads are interesting too. I might read one or two of those that people have kind of chimed in with their own experiences. I'll just read
if it's only the
this.
same one, go ahead.
Yeah, this one's already pulled up. It's not very long. A buddy and I were on a camping trip in the Padre Canyon outside Fort Collins, Colorado. It was late in the season, so all of the campgrounds were closed. We found a random spot off of a random road. Both of us have a ton of experience and had camped all over Colorado and Utah, but something about this particular spot was just off. Almost immediately, we found a blanket wrapped around a deceased skeletal animal. We assumed it was just a pet that someone had thrown out, but it set the mood. We went hiking, climbed up a few hills, and came across an abandoned tent wrapped up in a tree. I was certain we were going to find a body in it, but it was just filled with notebooks and a sleeping bag. We start hiking down the trail and end up walking down the side, very steep. As we were traversing down, We are hit with the smell of death. Nestled into a tree on the side of a very steep hill is a small towel with something clearly inside of it. We leave it be and hike down. This is probably 200 to 300 feet up the side of a steep hill with the towel in a tree facing the top of the hill, clearly intentionally put here. We down some bourbon, build up some courage, and hike back up. Grab a stick, open up the towel. Inside, a very recently deceased owl.
Hmm.
An owl. Somehow, some way, someone had killed this owl, wrapped it in a towel, hiked up a steep hill off a random mountain road, and stuck it beside a tree. We started a fire, slammed the bourbon, and got the F out of there in the morning.
Wow. So something is covering these dead animals.
That's crazy. Well, first of all, I don't know if you noticed, but it's hard to even spot an owl somewhere. You may hear them occasionally, but yeah, somebody killed one and put it in an owl in a towel. Is that some weird
That's quite strange.
cult stuff? I don't know.
Huh. I don't know what that means.
But yeah, that's just one of the comments. Yeah, I'll read a couple more after you guys do. So.
Okay. Hold on, I'm trying to find this one. This particular story. Alright. Well, if I can get past this one, it's long. Oops.
Oh yeah, I got another good one too. I need to. National parks are messed up, man. I think they mark off that space so these creatures can survive,
Yeah.
Because they're super secretive in these parks too.
Oh, that's crazy. There's a particular story I'm trying to find. And the first time that I read these, I didn't have to keep, loading things. I didn't think No.
Are you making progress? Is that...
Well, my finger keeps pressing the wrong thing. Sorry.
As long as
I scrolled down further than I thought.
long as we're making progress, I could go ahead and read this one, I suppose.
I found it.
Oh, okay.
All right. It's titled, It Might Have Been a Lizard Man.
All right, I like Lizard Man.
All right. My family goes camping in Joshua Tree twice a year. This has been going on for at least 60 years. I'm 28. And in that whole time, my family has only ever left early on 2 occasions. The first was when it rained up in the mountains and caused 3 inches of flash flood to wash out our camp at 4 a.m. Sorry, hold on. Things keep popping up.
Damn,
oh my
spam.
goodness.
You got them under control over there?
I don't. I don't know what is happening. You know what? You
I
go
don't
ahead
know.
and read real quick because my phone is just frozen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it was just getting good. All right, I'm just going to read this one because it sounds pretty creepy, and it's just a response to the other one I read. And this one was posted a year ago by the user Toothpaste Nachos.
Okay.
This happened on private property, but it's a creepy story that took place in the woods, so it kind of qualifies. Plus, this morning was opening day for deer season, and we were deer hunting when it happened. A lot of people claim to encounter crazy stuff hunting. My cousin owns land in western Wisconsin where there's lots of hills and lots of deer. It's tradition for all of us to hunt on his property. My dad, cousin, and all their friends pitched in to build a hunting shack on the property and put up tree stands. We hunt on a schedule so none of us hunt in the same area at the same time, both for our safety and in hopes of getting a deer. My dad and I took an ATV and headed up a hillside. The sun wasn't quite up yet, and we wanted to get set for sunrise. We marked which hill we were going up on the schedule inside the hunting shack. Nobody else was there yet, but we marked it anyways in case my cousin and his daughter showed up. We waited until about 9 a.m., and I didn't see a thing, not even as much as a squirrel. We decided to go get some coffee to warm up and then head back out. I followed my dad down the path back to the ATV, and we'd stop every so often to listen for deer. The only noises I heard were my footsteps and my dad's. About halfway to the ATV, I heard something else. It only happened when my dad and I walked. When my dad and I walk during deer hunting, I mimic his footsteps so we make less noise. I step at the same time as him. However, something behind me was making noise. It was like something was mimicking my footsteps. I spun around and peered into the trees. The sun still wasn't over the top of the hill yet, so we were in quite a bit of shade. I didn't see anything, so I continued to follow my dad down the hill. But I heard it again. This time, I turned around when we were still walking, and I saw something duck behind a tree. A pale face poked out from about 30 yards up the hill and hid behind the tree again. It poked out again, and this time stayed staring down at us. I stopped and hit my dad's shoulder. He turned and saw it too. "Get to the four-wheeler," he whispered, and I didn't hesitate. I stared it down as my dad started up the ATV, and as we departed, the face's dark little shoulder came out from behind the tree, followed by the rest of its gnarled, malformed body. My dad hit the throttle, and we got back to the hunting shack as soon as we could. Nobody else was there, so we got in the truck and left. I haven't been in those woods since. My dad was, and got a deer this morning, and acts like this never happened. I still think about it far too often.
I have a story that's kind of similar to something like that.
A pale face.
Huh.
And a like deformed body or something.
Huh.
That's wild. It sounds like a crawler possibly.
Yeah.
We've got some other episodes where we talk about people encountering these creatures. They refer to as crawlers. They've got pale skin and large eyes. They're
But
very alien
there
sounding.
there are several different little creatures it seems like that people have
There are.
said they've seen that.
They
are like,
they
some
fall
look
in the same
super creepy,
categories.
some look like alien.
Last week I went over something that I think somebody said could have been a skinwalker.
Yeah.
Like his jaw was hanging
Oh
off
yeah, that was terrible.
and the skin was like crazy tight on it or something.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. It was
Okay, you want me to read this?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I wouldn't want to encounter anything like that in the woods. I don't know. That's not too
I
close
mean,
anyways.
It was it makes you think, man, when you get out there and get away from your vehicle and you're a few miles back in somewhere, like
Yeah.
you're one serious thing happening away from a life or death situation. Like
Yeah.
anything that makes shit get
The true
real,
feeling of
like
helpless.
it really is. That's not where you want to be when something goes
No.
on.
Okay, I'm gonna read the story.
Hmm.
Let me unlock my phone here.
Here we go.
No, I've got it ready. Oh, I hope. Come on. Okay. It might have been a lizard person. My family goes camping in Joshua Tree twice a year. This has been going on for at least 60 years. I'm 28. And in that whole time, my family has only ever left early on 2 occasions. The first was when it rained up in the mountains and caused 3 inches of flash flood to wash out our camp at 4 a.m. The second time was much more terrifying, and none of us have an answer as to what actually happened. It's the first night of camping, and 12-year-old me is in the girls' tent with all my girl cousins, and about 6 of my male cousins are 10 feet away from us in another tent. My parents are closer to the road, along with 3 sets of uncles and aunts. All in all, there are about 20 of us. Most of our tents are the kind that you can zip open at the top to see the stars. And I always love doing that because I'm a bad sleeper, and it gives me something to look at when everyone goes to sleep. At one point, I close my eyes and I start to fall asleep when a small pebble from the humongous boulder next to our tent falls on top of the tent. I'm used to this because birds and squirrels often knock small debris around when they're trying to get at our food during the middle of the night. I open my eyes, and the first thing I see is someone appears to be standing on top of the boulder, about 15 feet up in the air, looking down into our tents. The person seemed to be wearing tight clothing and was really skinny and oddly shaped. At first, I tell myself that it's one of my male cousins, because they'd been trying to scare us all night. But the person was moving really weird. Its head was moving back and forth like a cobra, and it kept crouching down on all fours and crawling down the face of the rock closer to us, then crawling back up and pacing. At one point, it looked up at someone making noise at another campsite, and its eyes gleamed in the moonlight. I'm almost entirely sure, I'm also entirely sure that it did not have the skull shape of a coyote or a mountain lion. It had a flat face with no snout. So I'm laying in my tent, freaking out, and trying to rationalize what I'm looking at. A lot of time goes by, and this thing just continues to watch us and move its body in really strange ways. I think about screaming, but the thing keeps coming down the side of the rock, and I'm afraid it'll jump onto our tents and kill us. After some time, I hear a, "Hey, what the heck? Hey, what are you doing?" It's my uncle. Suddenly, at like 3 a.m., everyone is awake. My female cousins are awake and confused, and two of my older male cousins jump out of their tent with an axe. For a few seconds, the thing stays completely still. But then my aunt and several of my cousins see it, and they all scream. Someone finds a flashlight, and they turn it on. But the thing jumps off the backside of the rock. A couple seconds later, it gallops out from behind this rock, past our campsite. My uncle manages to shine a light on it for a second, and I still don't have any idea what I saw, besides the fact that the thing definitely didn't have clothes on, but was naked and had a dark mark on its side that I had mistaken for spandex. We were screaming and thrashing. We hear screaming and thrashing from another campsite, and several of the guys in our group go over and investigate. Whatever the thing was escaped into another campsite and ran into a small 2-person tent. When the Rangers got there, it's 4 a.m. and everyone was confused. My uncle and the people at the other tent say it was a naked person. I definitely don't think it's a person. And thankfully, 2 of my adult males had also spent some time watching it and being absolutely terrified by it, so they agreed with me. We give them all the details we could, and one ranger tells us that it was probably a coyote or mountain lion with mange.
Right.
The other ranger looks really, really concerned, and I think he went off into the night to look for it. Either way, it was too big for a coyote, and I've tracked mountain lions back in college and know for sure mountain lions do not move like that, nor look like that when they have mange. We all left and went home that night. Either there was a naked crazy person, a monster, or a mountain lion with mange running around, and it had spent at least an hour watching us. No thank you. We stayed in hotels for a couple of years after that, and I've camped there at least 20 more times since then, and I've never heard or seen anything like it since.
You know, I'm starting to wonder if these things that look like malformed or whatever,
Right.
if maybe there could be skinwalkers and like transformation.
Maybe.
I don't know, man. It's weird. It's very disturbing. That was a good story, though. And where was this at?
Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree. So this is a national park.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I have another one.
Awesome. Is this also?
This is not in Joshua Tree. This was in Colorado.
Okay.
It's titled "Something Was on the Other Side of the Tent." I thought it was kind of creepy. It's not anything real detailed or anything like, nothing was seen, but the thought of whatever this, it's kind of creepy. Anyways, like I said, "Something Was on the Other Side of the Tent" is what it's titled. More unsettling than creepy or supernatural. I was on a camping trip in Colorado and shared a tent with 2 friends. It was a small tent, so we were sleeping like sardines, and I was not in the middle. In the morning, though, I woke up and felt warm bodies on both sides of me. I thought maybe I had somehow rolled over into the middle, but when I opened my eyes, the tent wall was still on my side, meaning there was something outside sleeping against my side of the tent.
If you've been like that all night, though, you know what I'm saying? You're all right for a few more
I was
minutes.
somewhat petrified, but leaned over to wake up my friends, and whatever it was took off.
Wow.
It was definitely some kind of animal, but to this day, it still mystifies me that a wild animal, even a young deer, would bed down next to humans.
That's crazy. I mean,
It's a good story.
animals are typically
They've been
quite
known-
skittish.
Yeah, but they've also been known to like save,
Well, this
small
person
children.
was in a tent, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you know me. I want to be like that was Bigfoot sleeping next to
Yeah.
me. Why again? Why would that?
I mean, I don't know. Warm.
That's an incredible story,
I
though.
thought so. Not very long or
Not
anything, but
long,
sometimes
but
it's the best one.
man, that's crazy. I mean, I guess could it have been like a super vivid dream or something?
I mean, I don't think so because it was the next morning. He woke up that way.
That's crazy.
Oh my God, my phone is so stupid. I can't even tell you.
Do you have any more you
I
want to
do. I
roll
have
with?
a lot more. I could keep going. Yeah, I want to read one more just
Okay.
because and I've got to go back because my phone just shut off. Um, I'm going to read this one because it is kind of similar to, what was it, the first? You read one, right? Did you read two?
I read like one and then I read a couple
With the little small
responses
thing? Or the little gray creature or whatever?
Right, yeah.
Okay. That's the only reason why I'm going to read this one because it's something, it made me think of
A crawler.
the same thing, kind of. I got to get back to the right story, though, because there's a lot. All right. There's several really strange stories on this little
As always,
website.
links to these stories will be down in the description box if you guys want to check them out.
Yeah. Okay, so this one's titled Startled by a Small Humanoid Creature. This happened about 8 years ago when I was 21 and working as a camp counselor for Camp Tommy in Fishkill, New York. The place is basically a bunch of cabins in the woods on top of a mountain, each cabin a half-mile apart from the other, so you're pretty isolated in the woods. One night at about 1 a.m., I was sneaking off to meet my camp girlfriend. You're supposed to stay in your cabins after 10 p.m. But I did this, it was a usual thing, and was cutting through some woods to get to her cabin. Suddenly, I heard rustling in the woods and stopped to investigate it. There are bears and other animals, so I was expecting something like that. This 3-foot tall humanoid type thing suddenly jumps out of the bushes and looks at me. It's too dark for me to make out any of its features other than it was standing on 2 feet, had 2 arms, and basically looked just like a miniature person without any features. Just looked solid black. If it had clothes on, I would have been able to notice that. I was curious what it was, so I started walking towards it. And it spooked, bolting back into the woods. I'll never forget how mechanical it looked as it took off running. Its whole body basically shifted 90 degrees, like if someone was doing the robot dance. It just took off. I've never seen anything on 2 legs run that quickly, so I was pretty confused about what it was. I'm a pretty fast runner and fit person in general, but this thing was on another level of fast. As much as I try to make sense of it, I still, to this day, have no idea what it was. It was very human, but too short to be human. 3 foot tall is about accurate. And I don't know how a human could run that fast anyway. I have no idea, but it's always bugged me. Maybe one day I'll go back to try and find this creature again.
I don't know that you want to find it.
I mean, it's pretty ballsy to like walk towards it anyways.
My hats off to them. Most people
Mhm.
would not even attempt it. At least try.
Right.
But
you're probably not very intimidated by something that's like 3 foot tall.
I don't know, man. Something that can
Depending
move
on
that
how
fast
it looks.
could be a threat. You got to calculate the risks.
Yeah. There's another one here that's do you have something else?
I've got like a little list. Somebody that
Go for it then.
has a brother that's a National Park Service ranger. Has a little.
Oh, by the way, the stories were supposed to all be like forest rangers.
Right.
Of some
these
sort.
stories? Okay.
Yeah, the ones I read, they were like.
Well, that's where these came from as well.
Okay.
This is from what's that say? More morals and ramps. This was under the subreddit. What's your creepy national park experience? So it was 2 years ago. It says my brother is an NPS ranger He says there's some spooky stuff in the parks, particularly in the southwest. I posted some of these before, but here are the short versions and some of his better stories. He was camping in Big Bend National Park, and and his roommate had the exact same dream of being chased by a big black bull through the mountains. They Googled it on the way home. Turns out the area they were camped at is haunted by a witch that takes the form of a big black bull.
Get out of here.
I think it's called Bruja Mountain or something.
Huh.
Just little quick stories, you know. He worked at Arches National Park in Utah for a while. One of his ranger friends took a kayak trip somewhere in Utah, camped out by the side of the river. She had a super vivid dream that night of hearing something splashing in the water outside. When she went outside her tent, there was a naked woman in the river. The woman tackled her and began choking her so violently that when she woke up she was still gasping for air. The next morning there were cougar tracks all around the tent and down by the river. She spoke with a native friend about this, and sure enough, that area of the river is supposedly haunted by a skinwalker. Apparently skinwalkers take the form of cougars often. As a quick aside, as part of his job, my brother would go to local elementary schools and give talks about nature and animals and whatever. Whenever he went to a native majority school, he couldn't mention certain animals because they're associated with skinwalkers.
Yeah.
Cougars and owls, I believe.
Oh.
A friend of his had a Bigfoot encounter at a large national park in the Pacific Northwest. This guy is a super experienced biologist, doesn't like talking about this because it could screw up his career. But several years ago, he and another ranger were doing field work in the backcountry and were driving parallel to a river. On the other side of the river, they saw, and I quote, what looked like an extremely tall man, all in black, wearing a hoodie. This thing saw them and took off after them. What spooked my brother's friend was that it was keeping up with their truck, running like a man and jumping over rocks and logs and stuff. Again, he doesn't like talking about it because this guy is a semi-famous biologist up there and claiming a Bigfoot encounter could hurt your reputation. Plus, sounds like it scared the shit out of him.
Wearing a hood?
So like it looked like a very tall man in all black wearing a hoodie.
You know, I remember hearing a story once about, I may have said this before, about a vampire thing that was wearing like, you know, like a cloaked hood, and it chased after them and kept up with them the whole time. That's my initial thought when reading that, was not Bigfoot. It was more like, you know,
there's
hooded figures.
an interesting little comment that follows this. Somebody put, the Marine base in the Washington area has a few stories about Bigfoot. My cousin was stationed there, and the site range is in valley between two heavily wooded areas. He said multiple people, including himself, have seen what he describes as hairy men running between the wooded areas. They have to cross the range, and many of them have seen them. They've even had ceasefires while ones crossed the valley. I'll have to call him and get the name of the base.
Had what?
Ceasefires while they cross the valley.
Ceasefires?
Ceasefires.
Oh, ceasefire.
It's a Marine base in the Washington area, and they say that these things will travel between, through the valley, and they'll have a ceasefire so nobody shoots while they're crossing.
So I would love to see one from a distance. I think that would be awesome.
I don't know how
need
I'd
to
feel
have my
about
eyes
seeing
on
one
one
up close,
to
though.
have that, you know, without a doubt. I know they exist. I don't care if anybody else knows. I need to know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just want that 100%, like, validity.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm sure a lot of what we're talking about here could probably explain a lot of these missing persons cases.
Probably.
Because,
I mean,
the flip side of the coin of the things we're talking about is, what if the girl didn't make it to the car in time? And
right.
what if the thing didn't take off running away from the guy that chased it? And, you know, I mean, because it doesn't always turn out to be for the best, right?
Right. There's got to be the opposite.
So when you hear about missing people, I mean, maybe not a ton of them could be attributed to these things, but a percentage.
That fast.
Right, a percentage. You've got to think.
That's
maybe.
a scary thought.
Well, you know, stay on your P's and Q's, as they say.
Yeah.
Keep your head on a swivel, pay attention, and Don't be the person that laughs and shrugs their shoulders when somebody's telling you some information.
Well, what's the name of that? Missing in Alaska? Where they were talking about that monkey thing. I can't remember what they
Yeah.
called it, but
There was
so they would like
Alaska Triangle, I believe. Is the
okay,
show
they
you're
would set
talking
up
about.
like traps to catch people.
Mhm. Yeah, they say that.
Some
Yeah,
type
those
of monkey
things.
thing.
Yeah, that's and the first person that reported one, basically, it seemed like they had come across the scene where
Looked
looked
like a
like
little hut.
somebody had been killed or something, right? And I was like,
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
yeah.
someone was killed there. Yeah.
A lot of people go missing in Alaska. That's
I
there's
want to
a
go there. It's on my
really
bucket
really
list.
large number. What is it, like 4 out of every 1,000 people?
It's a large number.
It's a really significant number.
I
It's a
mean, even
very
4 out of
remote
1,000
area. I
is
mean, you
quite a
got to
bit.
think you don't go out in those in that kind of remote wilderness unless you're super experienced,
Yeah.
super experienced, and ready for whatever. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, that's not where you want to make a mistake at. But I mean, on top of that, you've got things we don't know about as well.
Right.
I mean, and
Oh yeah,
there's
I think
a
that was kind of my
slew of
point
them.
bringing up that thing in Alaska was that um, these things don't like to be seen or whatever supposedly, and they're really smart. If they're smart enough to make traps, they're smart enough to
Right.
like not be seen if they don't want to be seen, and
Well, clearly that's the issue that
with a lot.
a lot of these things
Yeah.
haven't been discovered because they don't like being seen.
Everybody wants to say like if they're out there, we've had to have seen that or got one. We could catch one, whatever. I don't think that's true.
Well, I mean, if you think about this, how often do you see a mountain lion?
Well,
Very rarely. Very rarely. And they're out there.
yeah.
They're there when you go out hiking. They're out there. They see you. You don't see them.
Ew, that's scary too.
It is scary,
Man,
but
they're beautiful though.
they're very majestic creatures.
Yeah. I think all large cats are. There's just something.
I don't want to
No.
encounter one or anything.
No, not at all.
But from a distance, sure. I got one more,
Okay, yeah, I have one more.
and I'll go ahead and let you
I'm yawning.
take us out of here tonight. Because I'm tired too. We had some
Yeah, my neck is
crazy
kinda long.
storms for like all day yesterday. I don't get any
Well, it
sleep
started
in
the night
storms,
before,
yeah.
and then all day yesterday.
So yeah, it was like last night, the night before. I haven't slept very much, so
I'm
yeah,
tired.
I'm ready to make up for it this weekend. But yeah, this one 2 years ago, just same thread. I'll put the link in the description. I got one. This is somebody just putting their 2 cents in.
All right.
I was a part of a 3-person trail crew. We were a good 26 miles from the trailhead. We were working on diverting the existing trail from an eroding cliff. This new trail was going to be a 7-mile diversion, so we were 5 miles into building the new trail, about another half day until we linked up with the old trail. It's mid-morning, so we decided to take a quick break. I'll leave my 2 crew members to go answer nature's call, so I'm digging a cat hole to go in, when I hear someone whistling of a tune. I just assume it's my crew, so I call out that this place is occupied. The whistling stopped. It was quiet. Then it started again. It moves just below where I'm at. Down the hill a ways, I see 2 men. Both men were dressed in black suits and top hats, carrying canes, just casually walking in the middle of the wilderness.
Huh.
No packs, no water bottles, looking like they were taking a stroll in a park. I'm sure it means a stroll. Looking
Right.
like they were taking a stroll in the park after an opera. I don't think and just started walking back to my crew, way freaked. I tell them what I just saw. We all go back and just catch them leaving. One of my crew screams down at them and waves. They ignore us and just keep casually walking until they're out of sight. They weren't using any trails, just walking in between trees. Just a weird and freaky experience for all 3 of us. I don't think we hardly slept that night. We finished our trail the following morning and raced back to civilization. Just took note of it in our weekly report, just in case those people did get lost out there.
Well,
Just
that's
interesting,
yeah. It's strange.
Very odd.
I mean, that's just not normal behavior.
Like maybe it's one of those instances where time.
Cult.
A cult, possibly. Yeah, that's a theory. But yeah, that's what I got this week. That's a couple more than I anticipated sharing, but
They were all pretty good, though.
they were really good.
Alright.
Anytime you get into national park stuff, man, there's some weird stuff that goes on. It doesn't take much to find it, you know.
All right. Huh.
But yeah, I'll let you go ahead and finish and
Keep
take us
talking.
out of here.
I had to close this out. I've got to get another phone.
Yeah, I mean, there was some really interesting ones on the thread, so.
The one I'm going to read right now is about a weird sighting as well. Just something strange, you know?
Right.
It's kind of long, though.
Oh, that's all right.
Let this load up right quick.
Is this another one about national parks or
It
anything?
is.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's necessarily a national park. I'll tell you in a second.
It's the wilderness, though.
Yeah, it's definitely out in the woods. I think it's an island, actually.
Oh, you never hear about things happening on islands, so.
I think I could be wrong about that. Let's see. Where is this at? There's all kinds of these stories, so I've got to find the right one. Oh. Let's see. Load. Sorry. Where's this at now?
Well, I'll tell you what, while you're waiting, I'm going to read this small one.
I found it.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, this one's just an odd man in the woods.
Okay. Odd man in the woods.
I was a park ranger on a small island, the only year-round resident. Private boat access only, with no bridge or ferries. It became crowded in summer, but we'd empty out completely when the weather turned. I loved the off-season, with 400 acres all to myself. No phone, no internet. Sometimes, though, I would get bored. I'd go out at night without a flashlight and challenge myself to hike the entire island in the dark. There was moonlight to navigate by, but there was also a stretch of the main trail that passed through the oldest trees on the island where I'd be plunged into total darkness. I was in the old forest one night when I heard something behind me. I turned, nothing there. Turned back, and something brushed my face. My stomach dropped, and I swung my fist into something. I ran full tilt for 100 yards, stomping in my big stupid boots with my gun belt bouncing up and down, my vest riding up to saw my throat. I stopped, bent over with a stitch in my side, and started laughing. I held my hand in front of my eyes and ran my fingers over the prickled cut from a branch I'd just punched. Through the spread fingers of my injured hand, I saw a smear of bright white off trail ahead. I figured it was one of a small herd of white rump deer the locals wrongfully referred to as palominos, but it moved up a side trail before I could get a better look. I got my breath under control and followed. 100 feet up the side trail, it split again, and I could hear something moving through the underbrush just past the fork to the right. I crouched as I made my way to the fork and stayed low, trying to keep quiet and unseen. The trail gains elevation as it nears the center of the island, where the trees spread out and the moon lights things up. I heard a sharp bark and froze, then crept forward a few feet. I reached the fork and was straining to see ahead when I heard the crunch and crack of something in the brush behind me. I spun and saw a pale man, 6 foot taller, with dark hair, wearing a bright white t-shirt about 30 feet from me. Oh my God. My phone just shut off.
You're kidding me.
I'm not.
Have you read this story? Do you know how it ends?
I have read all of it.
Alright, you sum it up for us. Don't leave us hanging.
So he looks up at him and he's like, just gives him like this real lunatic type grin.
Right.
Turns around and takes off running. And he hurries up and goes back to his camp or whatever, and never sees the dude again.
Wow. So it's like a wild.
But there's nobody
wild-
else there. He said afterwards he went around and looked to make sure there was no boats, nothing around for any person to be on the island. He's the only person there. He's the park ranger in the off season. But there was nobody else there. And I guess he's went back out many times trying to find, looking,
Signs
has
of the
never-
person, right.
never seen the dude again. He gave a description of what he looked like. He had like real dark hair and
I guess
but a
that
white t-shirt, just a white t-shirt. That's it.
lends to the possibility of there being portals or
I don't know.
maybe overlap time or something.
Why are you wearing just a shirt, just a white t-shirt?
That's an odd choice, yeah. Quite odd.
Oh, it's weird.
Pretty weird. Is that all you got for us this week?
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna close it out. There's another one that I could read, but it just gets off into some kind of weirder things. So I'm gonna leave it on the what we got right now.
Okay.
It's been a good one though.
Yeah.
Interesting stories. I want to encourage all of our listeners, if you guys have any kind of encounters you want to share with us at all, or if you just want to contact us, you can do that by emailing HillShadowsKy@yahoo.com. That'll be on the screen throughout the video if you guys need to write it down or whatever. And also, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss our weekly videos. And we also have a ton you can go back through and listen to. We've got a lot of cool encounters we've shared over the past year or so. So thanks for hanging out with us. And I don't have anything else to you.
I don't.
You guys have a wonderful weekend, and until next week, we'll see you then.
Bye.